Hello everybody and welcome to the HiragiZone. I'm your host, Ragi, and welcome to the first of a series of videos I like to call Ragi Rants, where you listen to me, rant about various things. This could be anything from pop culture to media, whether that be video games, comic books, movies, whatever, to just general things about culture, the world, and whatever the hell is happening right now. Now, I notice that for some of you, this may not be your scene as this isn't my usual content, even though I've only uploaded 4 videos. So if you really don't want to see me rant about something, please click off the video right now. That is entirely your freedom. But if you're willing to stick around, allow me to educate you on something that I find rather interesting today. Now, if you actually read the About page on this channel, you would know that I am indeed half Japanese, which means that I am not only a weeb, but a weeb with knowledge. I've had some great opportunities to really get into Japanese culture and see it firsthand from a perspective that not a lot of people can have. And as such, I kind of think it's part of my job to deliver this perspective to all of you. So, that being said, what's our first topic for today? Well, I think it's something that a lot of you weebs, if you are weebs, can definitely enjoy. Ninjas. With the launch of Ninjala, it seems like ninjas are once again at the focal point of pop culture and media, and honestly, I can't blame anyone for that. After all, ninjas are cool. They're one of the most badass figures ever to be seen in history, and it makes sense if companies want to capitalize on that coolness. But because of the abundance of ninja media we see nowadays, I honestly think that some people's perspective of what a ninja is kind of gotten skewed. I mean, think to yourself for a second. What is a ninja? Are you confident that your answer is correct? Well, even if you are, and even if you aren't, this video is here to clear up some thoughts on what actually is a ninja, and what shows do the ninja thing best. Now, first things first, let's get this out of the way. Ninjas are not assassins. I get that the portrayal of ninjas in media nowadays are these badass assassins that can kick ass and take names and slit throats, but in reality, ninjas are anything but. And to understand what a ninja truly is, we need to go back all the way to the Sengoku period of Japan. The Sengoku period was a period where Japan was split into multiple territories, ruled by several different overlords. These overlords were constantly at war with each other, trying to expand their own territory to take the tenka, or the country, for themselves. And during these wars, like many wars fought recently, information was a very important thing. After all, if you know what your opponent is doing, it's much easier to turn the battle in your favor. However, unlike a lot of battles that were fought recently, it was a lot harder to get that information. There were no secret codes to decipher, no transmissions you could intercept, no databanks to hack into. If you wanted information, you needed to either steal the document or listen into the conversation yourself. This is where ninjas came in. Ninjas weren't assassins as much as they were spies, assigned to steal information from rival overlords so that their lord could take the battle in their favor. A decent example of a ninja in anime is actually Kakashi from Naruto. While a lot of the characters in Naruto aren't really ninjas by nature, Kakashi has a lot of the ninja traits. Getting in places, stealing information, taking enemies out quietly, and let's face it, he is the only character in that show that actually understands what stealth is. Now, with the mention of Naruto, a thought probably comes to a lot of your heads. What about ninjutsu? What is that? If ninjas don't use that to fight, then what do they use it for? The answer to that is simple. They use their techniques of ninjutsu not just to fight enemies when they absolutely needed to, but also to run away. After all, you could get into a building, a castle, whatever, steal the information, the documents, but if you couldn't make it back to your lord, it meant nothing. The most important part of a ninja's job was escape. And this is where the really cool part comes in. Now, in ninjutsu, there exists something called Tonsou Jutsu, or Elemental Escape Jutsu. This Ton character might seem familiar to you Naruto fans, in the form of, this. This is because this Ton character comes from something called the Goton, or 5 elements, which is based off something called Taoism, originating in China. According to Taoism, everything in our world is composed of 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. What Tonsou Jutsu is taking these 5 elements and creating escape routes from it. Thus was born the Goton Sanjuppo, or 5 elements, 30 methods of escape. Essentially, every ninja had 30 methods of escape utilizing something around them, and these methods of escape could furthermore be split into 3 categories: Tentong, Chitong, and Jintong. These 30 techniques were an essential part of any ninja's toolkit, and honestly, some of it is quite badass. For example, let's take Tentong, or Heaven Element. These techniques are based off manipulating something that is natural, more of a phenomenon, like weather. For example, stuff like the Untong, or Cloud Element, utilizes the movements of cloud and the brightness brought on it to either blind enemies or escape in the shadows. An interesting thing to note is that there actually exist 2 electricity-based techniques within Tentong, Raitong and Dentong, lightning and electricity element respectively. While Raitong utilizes actual thunder and the noise created from it to stealth something away, Denton is actually a technique where a ninja generates static electricity, shocks enemies with it, and uses that as the slip to get away. It's not quite Raikiri or Chidori, but it's the closest thing we're going to get to that. Next up is Chitong, or Earth Element. This is utilizing natural materials, like the Goton mentioned before. In here is the world-famous Katon no Jutsu, which was widely popularized by the Uchiha clan in Naruto in this giant fireball. Now, of course, ninjas can't actually create magical fireballs and burn their enemies to death, but what Katon actually is really just a ninja setting fire to something. What's important isn't the act of setting fire itself, but that setting fire will create a crowd, and eventually an evacuation, in which the ninja can blend in with the crowd and pretend they're just a civilian running away. In here also exists Dotong and Moktong, which is using stuff like logs and wood, as well as earth. Something notable here is that there actually exists something called Kintong, or the metal element. Whenever you see a ninja throw a shuriken or a kunai, or even makibishi, which is foot spikes, this is Kintong, literally throwing metal at someone. Not necessarily to harm them or kill them, but just to create enough of a time to get away. Because even just the slightest of flinch from an enemy is more than enough of a gap for ninjas to make their escape. Finally, we have Jintong, which is using live humans and animals to escape. Notable ones in here are Danton and Nyotong, which is quite literally using men and women to escape. Danton mainly involves creating male groups doing manual labor as a disguise, while Nyotong really is just a ninja going out with someone, because back then, if a man went out with a woman, it really just looked like an ordinary couple. Something interesting here is that you also have Rotong, which is exploiting old men, even if it is just in the form of disguise. Because, as we all know, old men are totally harmless, right? Something I actually find amusing is that there are several animal-based techniques here. Namely, Kinton, Juton, Chuton, and my personal favorite, Gyoton. Kinton is the act of birds. If there are a lot of birds crying simultaneously, that's enough noise and ruckus for a ninja to sneak by. Sometimes ninjas actually used birds like crows in the forest, as crows actually attack anyone who dare come close to their nest. Jutong, on the other hand, is using animals like horses. This can be as simple as letting a horse go from a stable to cause a ruckus, or maybe sending a raccoon at someone. Chuton is similar to this, utilizing worms and reptiles. This again is really just to create a diversion, and was usually done in the form of throwing a snake at someone. Take that as you will. Finally, Gyoton is to make use of fish. This, similar to Chuton, is just for distraction, so all it is throwing fish at people. Supposedly, since fish are slippery enough, if someone steps on it, they'll slip, and that creates enough time for the ninja to escape, but I just personally can't get over the image of a ninja throwing fish at people. That's like the least elegant thing you could do, but apparently it was effective. Now, just because a ninja has a multitude of ways to escape, doesn't mean they can't fight. Ninjutsu is still a very real martial art that's taught today. With similarities to Jujutsu, it focuses on taking out enemies with as little motion as possible, as quietly as possible. One of the most famous ninjutsu dojos is Bujinkan, which is actually more famous overseas than in Japan, where weebs and martial artists alike come to learn this ancient art. And honestly, they give you the whole deal, from hand-to-hand combat, from weapons combat to actually firearm combat as well, Because believe it or not, ninjas did use guns. Again, it was more for escape or distraction, but ninjas weren't strangers to gunpowder and explosions. And it's honestly quite impressive that this is all still taught today. So, now that we know what a ninja does and what a ninja is, what are some notable ninja characters in media that are actually accurate in their portrayals? Well, personally for me, I think Soifon from Bleach is actually a pretty notable mention. While she isn't exactly a ninja, she is the leader of the Onmitsukido, Bleach's version of ninjas, and her fighting style revolves around her Zanpakuto Suzumebachi's very unique ability of being able to kill any enemy so long as you strike them in the same place twice. This is simply effective, efficient, and above all, quiet. On top of that, Soifon is very quick with her movements, and most fights against her don't really last that long. She even goes to say that her Bankai isn't exactly her style because it's loud and flashy, the exact opposite of what she wants to do. Which makes sense. I don't think any shinobi would be caught dead with this thing. One personal mention that's a little bit of a weird one for me as well are all the ninja-based characters in Fire Emblem Fates. They're the weird mix of culturally accurate and culturally inaccurate. While their fighting style doesn't exactly reflect ninjutsu, their actions and words do definitely reflect the stealthy ninja origins. However, I do have to give flack where flack is due. Kagura's design isn't exactly accurate because I guarantee you, no Kunoichi would be wearing that. So that brings us to the end of this video, and by this point I hope that your perspective of ninjas has been changed or at the very least improved. They're a fascinating part of Japanese culture that will always remain a cool thing that people will cover in the media. And for those of you who are thinking about picking up ninjutsu, I won't stop you, but do be warned, it is a rough path. There is a reason that these dojo masters are respected, and it's not just because they're practitioners of an ancient art. I remember watching on TV a group of non-Japanese people going to train at Bujinkan, and in an interview, the master of the dojo said something along the lines of ninjutsu is a tradition that continues to change. And honestly, I don't think this could be any more true. Ninjas have always had to rely on their surroundings to make an escape or turn the tides in battle. While we don't have a need for ninjas anymore in this day and age, if the time came where ninjas became a necessity again, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a whole new wave of ninja techniques based on this modern technological age. Heck, if that were to happen, I'm sure that we'd get some kind of new Tonsou Jutsu that involves high-level hacking. But until that happens, we can only hope that we won't need ninjas for a long time. And if we do, that they're not here to kick our ass. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what you see, please sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I hope you enjoyed your visit to the HiragiZone. This is your host Ragi, signing off.